Jessica Carter adjusted the delicate strap of her emerald evening gown as she stepped into the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing reflections across the polished marble floors, and the gentle hum of conversation, mixed with soft classical music, created an atmosphere of refined elegance. The annual Anderson and Blake charity fundraiser always attracted the city's elite, and tonight was no exception. She felt Trevor's hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd with the confident ease of someone who belonged in spaces like this. Trevor Mitchell had always been comfortable in high society settings. As a senior account executive at the firm, he moved through these circles like a shark through water, smooth and predatory. "Remember to smile and be charming," Trevor whispered, near her ear, his breath carrying the sharp scent of the whiskey he'd already consumed. "Mr. Anderson is here tonight, and I need to make a good impression." Jessica nodded, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. After 3 years together, she'd learned that evenings like this were never really about them as a couple. They were about Trevor's ambitions, Trevor's connections, Trevor's carefully constructed image of success. They found their assigned table near the front of the ballroom, where several colleagues and their partners were already seated. Jessica recognized most of them from office functions. She settled into her chair, smoothing the silk fabric of her dress, while Trevor immediately launched into animated conversation with Bradley from corporate finance. As servers began circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Jessica noticed a man seated 3 tables away. He was watching the room with an expression of detached interest, his dark gray suit impeccably tailored, his posture relaxed yet commanding. There was something about the way he held himself that suggested quiet power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. When his eyes briefly met hers, Jessica felt an unexpected flutter in her chest before quickly looking away. The dinner service began, and Jessica found herself mostly listening as Trevor dominated the conversation at their table. He talked about client acquisitions, his recent promotion prospects, the new luxury car he was considering. Occasionally, he would pat her hand absently, as if remembering she was there, but never actually including her in the discussion. "And how is your work going, Jessica?" Margaret from Human Resources finally asked, her kind eyes showing genuine interest. Before Jessica could respond, Trevor laughed. "No, Jess just handles the marketing coordination stuff. Nothing too exciting. She's more of a behind-the-scenes person. Not really the spotlight type, you know." Jessica felt heat rise to her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. "Actually, I recently led the campaign for the Riverside Development Project. We exceeded our engagement targets by 40%. "That's wonderful," Margaret said warmly. But Trevor had already turned back to his conversation with Bradley, effectively dismissing Jessica's accomplishment. The evening progressed through multiple courses, each more elaborate than the last. Jessica noticed the mysterious man from across the room had been joined by others who seemed to defer to him naturally. She wondered who he was, though she couldn't quite say why he intrigued her. Then came the speeches. Mr. Anderson, the firm's founding partner, took the microphone first, thanking everyone for their generous donations to the Children's Hospital Fund. Several other executives followed, each sharing brief words about community and corporate responsibility. When Trevor stood up, Jessica felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. He hadn't mentioned planning to speak. "Good evening, everyone," Trevor began, his voice slightly slurred from the alcohol. "I want to take a moment to talk about partnership. You know, in business and in life," he gestured broadly, nearly knocking over a water glass. "Some partnerships are dynamic, exciting, full of energy." Jessica's hands tightened around her napkin. "And some partnerships," Trevor continued, grinning at their table, "are like comfortable old furniture. Nice to have around, but not exactly exciting. You know what I mean?" He looked directly at Jessica. "My girlfriend here, for example. Sweet girl, very reliable, but let's be honest, she's about as spontaneous as a tax form. I keep telling her. She needs to live a little, take some risks, be more fun." Laughter rippled through parts of the ballroom, though many faces showed discomfort. Jessica felt every eye turned toward her, felt the weight of humiliation pressing down on her shoulders. Her throat tightened, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. But then something shifted inside her. Instead of shrinking, instead of forcing a smile and playing along like she'd done countless times before, Jessica stood up. The room fell silent as she carefully placed her napkin on the table, gathered her small clutch, and looked directly at Trevor. You're absolutely right about one thing, she said, her voice steady and clear. I am reliable. Reliable enough to have supported your career for 3 years while you took credit for ideas we brainstormed together. Reliable enough to have attended every tedious networking event without complaint. And I'm reliable enough to know my own worth, which is something you clearly never figured out. Trevor's face went pale, then red. Jessica, come on, it was just a joke. You're a joke, she replied as I stayed this long. She turned and walked toward the exit, her head high, her steps measured and deliberate. The click of her heels against marble was the only sound in the stunned ballroom. Jessica pushed through the heavy glass doors and into the cool night air. She made it to the edge of the hotel's fountain courtyard before her composure finally cracked. She pressed her hand against the cool stone, breathing deeply, trying to process what had just happened. That was impressive. A deep voice said from behind her. Jessica turned to find the man from table 3, standing a respectful distance away. Up close, he was even more striking. Strong jawline, dark hair, with just a touch of silver at the temples, eyes that seemed to see through pretense. I'm sorry I don't, Jessica started. Dylan Foster, he said, extending his hand. Old college. Friend of Trevor's, though I'm rapidly rethinking that association after tonight. Jessica shook his hand, surprised by the warmth and steadiness of his grip. Jessica Carter. And I'm sorry you had to witness that disaster. Don't apologize, Dylan said firmly. You have nothing to apologize for. Trevor, on the other hand, should be mortified. He paused, studying her face. I've known him since freshman year, and I've watched him diminish people to make himself feel bigger. I always hoped he'd grow out of it. Apparently not, Jessica said with a bitter laugh. Dylan moved to stand beside her, both of them looking out at the fountain. I run a tech company downtown, Foster Innovations. We develop software solutions for sustainable urban planning. He glanced at her. I've actually followed some of the marketing campaigns from Anderson and Blake. The Riverside development promotion was brilliant. The way you integrated community storytelling with visual media created real emotional connection. Jessica looked at him in surprise. You know my work? I make it my business to notice good work, Dylan said simply. What I've seen, you're extremely talented. Trevor's an idiot for not recognizing that. For the first time that evening, Jessica felt something other than humiliation. She felt seen, genuinely seen by someone who had no reason to flatter her. Thank you, she said softly. That means more than you know. Dylan pulled a business card from his jacket pocket and offered it to her. I'm serious about what I said. You're talented, and you deserve to work somewhere that values that. If you ever want to explore other opportunities, or even just need someone to talk to who isn't a complete disaster, call me. Jessica took the card, feeling the weight of possibility in that small piece of paper. Now, Dylan continued with a slight smile. I'm going to go back inside and have a very direct conversation with Trevor about treating people with basic human decency. You, however, should go home. Take off those shoes that I'm sure are killing you by now. Recognize that you just did something incredibly brave. Jessica found herself smiling for the first time all evening. The shoes are actually torture devices. I thought so, Dylan said. Go. Be free of this disaster of an evening. As Jessica walked toward the parking area, she glanced back once to see Dylan heading back inside, his posture radiating quiet determination. She didn't know what he was going to say to Trevor, but somehow she didn't care anymore. For the first time in 3 years, Jessica felt like she could finally breathe. 2 days after the fundraiser, Jessica sat in her favorite corner booth at the Daily Grind, a small coffee shop tucked away on Maple Street. She had called in sick to work, something she never did. But the thought of facing Trevor and the inevitable office gossip made her stomach turn. Her laptop was open in front of her, resume half-obated. As she contemplated what came next, the bell above the door chimed, and Jessica looked up out of habit. Her breath caught when she saw Dylan Foster walk in, dressed casually in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that somehow made him look even more put together than he had in his formal suit. Their eyes met across the coffee shop, and Dylan's face broke into a warm smile. He ordered at the counter, then walked directly to her table. He asked, gesturing to the seat across from her. Jessica closed her laptop and nodded. Please. Dylan set down his black coffee and settled into the booth with an easy grace. I didn't expect to see you here. This is a pleasant surprise. I needed somewhere quiet to think, Jessica admitted. Somewhere that isn't my apartment or anywhere near the office. Avoiding Trevor? Dylan asked, his tone understanding rather than judgmental. Avoiding everyone, Jessica said with a sigh. The story has probably spread through the entire company by now. Poor Jessica, having a breakdown at the charity fundraiser. That's not what happened, Dylan said firmly. What happened is that you stood up for yourself when someone treated you disrespectfully. Anyone who sees it differently has their own issues to work through. Jessica wrapped her hands around her now cool coffee mug. Did you really talk to Trevor? I did, Dylan confirmed. It wasn't a pleasant conversation. I told him that his behavior was unacceptable, that he had embarrassed himself far more than he embarrassed you, and that if he had any sense at all, he would spend the next several years learning how to treat people with basic respect. How did he take it? Dylan's expression turned wry. About as well as you'd expect. He got defensive, made excuses about the alcohol, tried to claim you were being too sensitive. I told him that our friendship was over unless he made some serious changes. He paused. I should have said something years ago. I watched him treat people poorly in college, always justified it as ambition or confidence. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You're not responsible for his behavior, Jessica said gently. Maybe not, Dylan agreed. But I'm responsible for my own inaction. That changes now. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the coffee shop creating a soothing backdrop. The espresso machine hissed, quiet conversations hummed around them, and somewhere in the back someone was listening to soft jazz. Can I ask you something? Dylan said, leaning forward slightly. What did you want to be before you ended up in marketing coordination at Anderson and Blake? The question surprised Jessica. No one had asked her about her dreams in years. I wanted to run my own creative agency. Something small and specialized, working with nonprofits and social enterprises. Organizations that are trying to make real change but don't have the budget for big marketing firms. Dylan's eyes lit up with interest. That's specific. And ambitious. It's a fantasy, Jessica said, shaking her head. I don't have the connections or the capital to start something like that. And honestly, after 3 years of Trevor telling me I should be grateful for my position at a prestigious firm, I started believing that maybe I was aiming too high. Jessica, Dylan said, his voice serious. Look at me. She met his gaze, struck by the intensity she found there. You are not aiming too high, he said. You're aiming exactly where you should be. The only question is whether you're ready to take the steps to get there. I don't even know what those steps would look like, Jessica admitted. Dylan pulled out his phone and scrolled through something before turning it toward her. This is the Community Outreach Division of Foster Innovations. We work with exactly the kinds of organizations you're talking about. It's helping them develop digital strategies and public awareness campaigns. We're expanding the team. Jessica looked at the website, her heart starting to beat faster. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity, Dylan corrected. Come in for an interview. Meet the team. See if it's somewhere you could see yourself thriving. No pressure, no obligations. Just a conversation about possibilities. Why would you do this for me? Jessica asked, searching his face. You barely know me. Dylan was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. 5 years ago, I was in a relationship with someone who constantly made me feel like my ideas were too ambitious. It's too risky, too unconventional. She wanted me to take a stable corporate job, climb someone else's ladder, be grateful for security over passion. He took a sip of his coffee. I almost listened. I almost gave up on building Foster Innovations because someone I trusted told me I was being unrealistic. What changed? Jessica asked. My sister, Dylan said with a soft smile. She sat me down and asked me a simple question. She said, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And the answer was so clear, so obvious, that I realized the only real failure would be not trying. He looked directly at Jessica. So I'm asking you the same question. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Jessica felt tears prick at her eyes. I would stop playing it safe. I would stop making myself smaller to fit into someone else's expectations. I would take a risk on myself, then do it, Dylan said simply. Life's too short to spend it being dimmed by people who are threatened by your light. Jessica laughed, wiping at her eyes. That's pretty philosophical for a tech CEO. I contain multitudes, Dylan said with a grin. Also, I read a lot of poetry. Don't tell anyone. It would ruin my ruthless businessman image. Your secret is safe with me, Jessica promised, feeling lighter than she had in months. They talked for 2 more hours. Dylan told her about building his company from a small startup in his apartment to a successful firm with over 50 employees. Jessica shared her ideas for campaigns, her frustrations with corporate bureaucracy, her love for storytelling that actually meant something. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from professional to personal and back again. Dylan asked about her family, her hobbies, what she did when she wasn't working. Jessica learned that he volunteered teaching coding to underprivileged kids on weekends, that he was terrible at cooking but excellent at ordering takeout, that he had a rescue dog named Hemingway, who was probably destroying a couch cushion at that very moment. I should let you get back to your day, Dylan finally said, though he made no move to leave. I should probably actually update my resume, Jessica said. Gesturing to her laptop, Dylan stood but hesitated. There's a networking event tomorrow night at the Meridian Gallery downtown. It's mostly startup founders, creative directors, people doing innovative work in the city. Would you want to come? As my guest? Jessica felt a flutter of nervousness mixed with excitement. Is this a date? This is me introducing a talented professional to people who would appreciate that talent, Dylan said diplomatically. Then he smiled. But I also wouldn't mind spending more time with you outside of coffee shops and disastrous fundraisers. Then yes, Jessica said, making a decision. I would love to come. Dylan's smile widened. Perfect. I'll text you the details. He paused at the edge of the booth. And Jessica, stop doubting yourself. You're extraordinary. It's time you started believing it. As he walked out of the coffee shop, Jessica sat back in her seat, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Genuine hope. She opened her laptop and began working on her resume with renewed purpose. But her mind kept drifting to the possibilities Dylan had opened up. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. We need to talk. I'm sorry about the other night. Can we meet? Jessica looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She was done with apologies that came too late, with relationships that required her to shrink. With accepting less than she deserved, tomorrow night she would walk into that gallery with her head high. She would meet new people, make new connections, and start building the life she actually wanted. And maybe, just maybe, she would discover that the connection she felt with Dylan was the beginning of something real. The Meridian Gallery was everything Jessica expected and nothing like she imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. Abstract art pieces hung on exposed brick walls. Groups of people clustered around high tables, engaged in animated conversations. Unlike the stiff formality of the fundraiser, this space buzzed with creative energy. Jessica had chosen her outfit carefully, a deep burgundy jumpsuit with a structured blazer, professional but artistic. She felt good, confident in a way she hadn't in months. Dylan was waiting near the entrance, and his face lit up when he saw her. He was wearing dark slacks and a navy button-down with the sleeves rolled up. Looking relaxed and approachable. You look amazing, he said. Offering his arm. You clean up pretty well yourself, Jessica replied, taking his arm as they entered the main gallery space. For the next hour, Dylan introduced her to an incredible array of people. There was Monica Chen, who ran a sustainable fashion startup. James Rodriguez, founder of a nonprofit connecting artists with community development projects. Priya Kapoor, a venture capitalist who specialized in funding women-led businesses. Each conversation was genuine, focused on ideas and passion rather than corporate politics. Your marketing approach for Riverside development was really smart, Monica said when Dylan mentioned Jessica's work. I saw the case study. The way you centered community voices instead of just pushing the development angle was refreshing. Thank you, Jessica said, feeling warmth spread through her chest. I fought hard for that approach. The developers wanted something more traditional, but I believed the authentic stories would resonate more. They did, Priya interjected. I used it as an example in a presentation about ethical marketing practices. You should be proud of that work. Jessica glanced at Dylan, who was watching her with obvious pride. This was what it felt like to be valued, she realized. To have her work recognized and respected by people who understood it. Then she saw him. Trevor stood near the bar, talking with someone Jessica didn't recognize. He looked out of place in his overly formal suit, his posture stiff. When his eyes landed on Jessica, his expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and something that looked like anger. He excused himself from his conversation and walked directly toward them. "Ah, Jessica," Trevor said, his smile forced. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Dylan invited me," she replied evenly. Trevor's eyes flicked to Dylan with barely concealed irritation. "Right, of course." He turned his attention back to Jessica. "Can we talk? Privately?" "Anything you need to say, you can say here," Jessica said firmly. Trevor glanced around at the small group that had gathered. Monica, Priya, James, and several others Dylan had introduced her to were all watching with interest. "Fine," Trevor said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "I made a mistake at the fundraiser. I was drunk and stupid, and I said things I didn't mean. You know I love you, Jess. We've been together 3 years. That has to count for something." Jessica felt Dylan tense beside her, but he remained silent, letting her handle this her own way. "You're right," Jessica said calmly. 3 years does count for something. It counts as 3 years where I made myself smaller so you could feel bigger. 3 years where I accepted criticism disguised as jokes. 3 years where my accomplishments were dismissed and my dreams were treated as hobbies. "That's not fair," Trevor protested. "I supported your career. You tolerated my career," Jessica corrected. "There's a difference. Support means celebrating someone's success. Tolerance means allowing it while making them feel guilty for having it." Trevor's face reddened. "This is because of him, isn't it?" He gestured at Dylan. "My so-called friend, who couldn't wait to swoop in the moment we had problems." "Your problems started long before that fundraiser," Dylan said, his voice calm but firm. "And I didn't swoop in. I recognized someone who was being treated poorly and offered friendship and professional respect. Something you should have been providing all along." "Friendship," Trevor scoffed. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Yes," Jessica interjected before Dylan could respond. "Dylan has shown me more genuine respect and friendship in 3 days than you showed me in 3 years. He sees my potential instead of feeling threatened by it. He encourages my dreams instead of making me feel foolish for having them." She took a breath, feeling the eyes of everyone around them. "And whether anything develops between us or not, I will never, ever accept being treated the way you treated me again. I'm done, Trevor. Completely done." Trevor's expression shifted from pleading to bitter. "You'll regret this. Do you know how good you had it? Working at a prestigious firm, dating someone with connections. You think you're going to do better on your own?" "Actually," Dylan said, stepping slightly forward, "I've offered Jessica a position at Foster Innovations, heading up our new social impact marketing division, if she wants it." Jessica turned to look at him in shock. "What?" Dylan met her eyes, and his expression was completely serious. "I was going to tell you properly with a formal offer letter and everything. But yes, after talking with you yesterday, I met with my leadership team. We want to create a division focused exactly on what you described, working with nonprofits and social enterprises. And we want you to build it. You created a position for me?" Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I created a position the company needs," Dylan corrected gently. "And I'm offering it to the person best qualified to fill it. What you do with that offer is entirely up to you." Trevor laughed harshly. "This is ridiculous. Jessica, you're really going to throw away everything we built for some fantasy job at a startup?" "I'm not throwing away anything," Jessica said, finding her voice strong and clear. "I'm choosing myself." "Maybe for the first time ever," she turned to Dylan. "Can we talk about this properly?" "The offer, I mean?" "Of course," Dylan said. "Take all the time you need to think about it." "I don't need time," Jessica said, surprising herself. "Yes, my answer is yes." The small crowd that had gathered burst into spontaneous applause. Monica hugged Jessica, Priya shook her hand enthusiastically, and James raised his glass in a toast. Trevor stood there for a moment, looking between Jessica and Dylan with an expression of disbelief. Then he turned and walked away. Disappearing into the crowd without another word, Dylan placed a gentle hand on Jessica's shoulder. "Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," Jessica said, laughing with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. "I think I'm actually happy." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, business cards exchanged, and genuine connections made. When the event finally wound down, Dylan walked Jessica to her car. "That was intense," he said with a slight smile. "That's one way to put it," Jessica agreed. "Thank you, by the way, for the offer, for standing beside me, for everything." "You don't need to thank me," Dylan said. "You earned that position with your talent and your ideas." They stood in the parking garage, neither quite ready to say goodbye. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, but somehow the moment felt intimate. "Can I ask you something?" Jessica said. "Why did you really offer me this job? Is it because you feel sorry for me? Or because of what happened with Trevor?" Dylan considered the question seriously. "I offered you the job because you're brilliant at what you do, and my company would be lucky to have you. But I won't lie and say personal feelings aren't involved." "Personal feelings?" Jessica echoed, her heart beating faster. "Jessica," Dylan said, taking a small step closer, "I'm attracted to you. I have been since I first saw you at that fundraiser, before everything fell apart. I'm attracted to your intelligence, your creativity, your strength. But I also respect you too much to make you uncomfortable or to confuse professional and personal boundaries." He ran a hand through his hair, looking almost vulnerable. "So here's what I'm proposing. Take the job if you want it. Come work at Foster Innovations, build something amazing, and show everyone what you're capable of. And if, after some time has passed, you're interested in exploring whether there could be something between us beyond friendship and professional respect, we can have that conversation then." Jessica felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were good tears. "You would wait?" "I would wait," Dylan confirmed. "Because you're worth waiting for. And because you deserve time to figure out who you are outside of that relationship, without jumping into something new right away." Jessica reached out and took his hand. "You're a good man, Dylan Foster." "I try," he said with a soft smile. "Give me 2 months," Jessica said suddenly. 2 months to start the new position, to get my bearings, to process everything that's happened. And then, if you're still interested, take me to dinner. A real date, no networking, no professional pretense, just us." Dylan's smile widened. 2 months. "I can work with that." "Good," Jessica said, squeezing his hand before letting go. "Then I'll see you Monday to discuss the position details." "Monday," Dylan confirmed. 9 o'clock. My office. Jessica got into her car, and as she drove home through the city streets, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Excitement about the future. Not anxiety about what might go wrong, but genuine excitement about what might go right. 6 months later, Jessica stood in the new offices of the Social Impact Division of Foster Innovations. The space was bright and open, with a team of 8 talented people she had personally hired. On the walls were campaign materials for 3 nonprofits they were currently working with. Each project funded by grants Dylan had helped secure. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. "Lunch in 20 minutes? That Thai place you love?" Jessica smiled. After 2 months of professional collaboration and growing friendship, they had finally gone on that first date. Then a second. Then a third. 5 months later, they were still taking things slowly. But the connection between them had only deepened. Unlike her relationship with Trevor, this felt like partnership. Dylan celebrated her successes, challenged her ideas in ways that made them stronger, and never once made her feel like she should be anyone other than exactly who she was. "Absolutely," she texted back. "Can't wait." She gathered her things. Jessica caught sight of her reflection in the office window. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. More confident, more alive, more herself. The woman who had walked out of that fundraiser had been scared but determined. The woman standing here now was neither scared nor just determined. She was thriving, building something meaningful, and allowing herself to be loved by someone who saw all of her and wanted more. Sometimes, Jessica thought, the worst night of your life can become the beginning of your best life. You just have to be brave enough to walk through the door when it opens. She grabbed her bag and headed out to meet Dylan, ready for whatever came next. I am E to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.